Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, highlighting and showcasing the digital transformation efforts that we've been working on in 2019, funded by a grant from DIAL, the Digital Impact Alliance. So I will give you some brief background on our goals and what we're aiming to achieve with these two projects. And then I'm going to pass it on to Ishvan and Marta, who are going to walk through some more of the choices that were made in terms of the technologies that we've built upon and why we made those choices, as well as giving both a demonstration and walkthrough of what's been implemented around the payment hub, as well as the API gateway. So as I noted earlier, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type those in the chat or raise your hand, and then we'll try to get to all questions at the end. So before I speak specifically to some of the goals of the grant, I just wanted to go back to a slide that we've used a number of times in presentations, just to show you on the journey that our community has been going on. Within the Grameen Foundation, when we launched Generation 1 of Mifos as the world's first web-based open source management information system for microfinance, we continued that journey, helping to evolve technology solutions for the sector by spinning out as a separate nonprofit 501c3, the Mifos Initiative, and rolling out Mifos X, or our Generation 2 software, which provided an API-driven core banking platform for financial inclusion. And then over the past couple of years, we've also become a top-level project within the Apache Software Foundation under the name of Apache Fineract. And we've begun the transition and development and gradual migration over to our Generation 3 architecture, which aims to provide the industry as a whole a cloud-native application framework for digital financial services. So we've gone on a long journey. We're happy that the community has been with us along the way. And on Generation 2 of Mifos, we've been really impressed with the vibrant ecosystem of not only traditional brick and mortar financial institutions, but also fintech companies that have used the back end to power their solutions. And so our goal is to work with this ecosystem across our community to continue making contributions back to the open source code base. And also, as these partners in our ecosystem become successful financially, have some of that value that they're creating be shared back for the ongoing sustainability of the nonprofit Mifos Initiative and the support we provide for the community and the ecosystem. And so really, although our target market is the base of the pyramid, and there are 3 billion underbanked that we're trying to provide solutions and digital financial services for, we really understand and recognize that financial inclusion and the base of the pyramid is really just the tip of the pyramid. So our end game and our end goal is to democratize financial services as a whole. And we fundamentally believe that Mifos and the Fineract software can emerge as a global standard for financial services innovation and fully disrupt the fintech and global financial services sector at large. So within the base of the pyramid, we have a massive opportunity to still digitize institutions, help get them on automated cloud-based systems to make their operations more efficient, but also help them undergo the digital transformation and roll out mobile money services, roll out branchless delivery channels like mobile banking, agent banking, all of which we'll talk about today. And then looking more broadly at fintech in the financial sector, there are great opportunities there to provide a platform as a service and enable fintechs to build on top of our APIs or banks to offer services through the APIs as well. So as you know, this is what our stack looks like. Like we're gradually trying to migrate over from Generation 2 to the new Generation 3 application framework architecture. But we've come to realize and recognize and understand over the past year and a half that there's an immense amount of demand for Mifos X, and we need the community's help to continue to ship releases in a timely manner and continue to provide new functionality. So a lot of the functional development has been centered around improving our mobile channels and improving our web interfaces, but not a lot of deep functionality. So we highly encourage and welcome partners who are building features to share those features back for the community and be active and transparent in discussing on lists what you're working with. For all of our partners, the discussion we're trying to have is, drawing that line between your roadmap and your anti-roadmap, so you can understand that we recognize there are a set of features that will never go into the open source version that a partner needs to build as proprietary value for their local market. But to draw that line and, be deliberate and understand that you should be contributing back to the upstream code base, and there are features that can benefit the community as a whole and not put you at a competitive disadvantage. So we're trying to work with all of our partners to aim to contribute back to the code as much as possible and enable that virtuous cycle that's necessary for our global community. And then lastly, this slide is just a brief look at, what we really aim to achieve with Generation 3. So we fundamentally believe that the core banking software itself should become a commoditized piece of software, and the real value lies in the applications that are built on top of it, as well as the data that flows in and out. We really want to help Generation 3 become that set of open source building blocks for the financial services sector that can easily be configured in any way, shape, and form to build any type of financial service application. So not just like a core banking system for a microfinance institution, but aim to support mobile wallets, digital credit, and other new next generation mobile first solutions that are helping to dramatically increase the pace of financial inclusion worldwide. So that gets us to the efforts we have been working on with DIAL. So DIAL, or the Digital Impact Alliance, is an initiative that's funded by a number of global entities like Gates Foundation, the UN, the Swedish Development Aid Organization. And so we've been working with their open source center for about 1.5 years now. Like, we luckily had a good contact there in Michael Downey, who came from OpenMRS, and we, spoke with him and worked with him closely as DIAL and their open source center strategy has evolved. So DIAL provided initially a catalytic grant to Mifos, which we used to fund the community engineer role last year that Shruti filled. And then we've also participated with DIAL through Google Code-In last year. And then they've funded 2 outreach interns this year who are working on converting our user manual to the Gitbook format, and then also migrating our Google group and mailing list for Mifos onto a discourse forum. But the largest project that we've worked on with DIAL is a strategic grant. And so we had 2 main focuses of the strategic grant that we kicked off in 2019. The first was to integrate Mifos with Mojaloop, and I'll talk more in a moment about why that has strategic importance. And then our second goal was to work towards a first release and functional minimum viable product on top of the Generation 3 or Fineract CN architecture. So around the first goal of integrating Mifos with Mojaloop, for those who don't know, and I think we've shared a couple webinars in the past of what Mojaloop is, but Gates Foundation has been investing significantly in a project called the Level 1 Project, which aims to define a set of guiding principles of how modern payment systems can be designed to be more inclusive for the base of the pyramid. And then they've also led the formation and development of Mojaloop, which is essentially a reference open source implementation of these level 1 principles that can be used to build a payment switch or payment system for any nation or region. And so the Mifos and Mojaloop systems are very highly complementary. If you look at the rules, rails, accounts, apps framework that Gates Foundation likes to use, Gates Foundation is invested in helping to develop a set, or helping at a government level, governments to establish a set of enabling rails, rules to help guide digital financial service innovation. And then Mojaloop would provide a set of interoperable digital rails to allow transactions to flow seamlessly across any type of payment platform, whether that be a mobile money platform, a traditional platform like Swift, or even cryptocurrency platforms today. And then Mifos, as the account layer, provides a flexible account management layer to manage the actual account of the customer and the financial services that are attached to that. And then on top of that Mifos account layer, you can build any type of application. So Mifos is highly complementary in that any organization that's using a set of digital rails or working on top of a payment system needs a system to manage the financial accounts that are guiding these transactions. So Mifos provides that account management system, and then Mojaloop is that digital rail. And so beyond just integrating Mifos with Mojaloop to help demonstrate what an end-to-end open source architecture for digital financial services looks like, we wanted to also integrate the two and then provide a lab environment for both our community as well as the Mojaloop community to test out this integration. So we believe there's great synergy, not only between the two technologies, but also between our two communities. So as prospective countries and regions look at potentially adopting Mojaloop as like a payment system for their region, like we think the Mifos partners could play a role in helping to implement that system or help DFSPs or financial institutions actually connect to Mojaloop. So once we have Mifos fully integrated with Mojaloop, any country that's looking to adopt Mojaloop as the basis for their payment system, an institution that's using Mifos will be able to connect seamlessly. And then we also believe that within our community, there's a great number of innovators and others who can build out solutions that can integrate with Mojaloop or enable more transactions to flow through the platform itself. So we really believe that by creating this end-to-end open source architecture for digital financial services, we can provide Mifos as the locomotive that's fueling innovation on top of Mojaloop, which is providing this set of digital rails for the industry that will allow interoperable payments to be facilitated and flow through. And so I can share more details on where Mojaloop has been adopted to date. But right now, the two implementations that are proceeding along most rapidly are the Mojaloop project in the Ivory Coast, which is the mobile wallet interoperability initiative between MTN and Orange, which is actually now live and in production. And then in Tanzania, the Bank of Tanzania is building out TIPS, or the Tanzania Instant Payment System, on top of Mojaloop. And so we're closely involved there to help identify how we can accelerate the participation of SACCOs and other tier 4 institutions in the TIPS payment scheme. And then there are other efforts happening worldwide in South and Southeast Asia and across sub-Saharan Africa that we're trying to be involved in to help advance the adoption of Mojaloop and enable institutions that are using Mifos as their account management system to connect in more effectively. And before I talk a little bit about the payment hub, because Istvan and Marta will focus more here, I just wanted to, first off establish why we need it and the end goals that will accomplish beyond just integration with Mojaloop. So for a while now, we've been aiming to have like a scalable, extensible interface in which to connect to external payment systems, primarily mobile money channels. And we went through several different architectural choices and development cycles for that, but still don't have actual point of integration to show to the community. But we do have that now with the payment hub. So apart from the initial integration with Mojaloop, our goal is to integrate it with other payment systems as well as over-the-top APIs like those provided by mobile money providers. So we also have an intern right now working on integrating the payment hub with the GSMA mobile money API. And we welcome any other partners who have mobile money APIs in their region that they would like to integrate with to share those details with us so we can try and help and work with you to do so. And then this payment hub, which Istvan and Marta will go into details around, helps to connect not only the core banking system to payment system, but it also can interface with and connect the channel interfaces. And so just in terms of the progress we've done thus far, I'm going to just quickly pass over this as Istvan and Marta will speak to it more. But we've set up a test environment in AWS that's accessible to our community and the Mojaloop community. and we can share details of this with you after the call. We've built and designed the payment hub itself, and then integrated with the 2 Mojaloop APIs that were available and ready for production. So the first one is enabling a peer-to-peer transfer to occur via Mojaloop, and the second is a merchant proximity payment. So basically being able to generate a QR code and have the customer scan that, and then the money be debited from their account. And then throughout this time, over the past good portion of 2019, that we've been working with Mojaloop, we've been very actively involved in their community. Ishvan and I have attended 3 of the global convenings that they've held in sub-Saharan Africa, and we're aiming to continue the development of the payment hub, incorporate additional use cases, and really make the payment hub be a production-ready solution, taking it beyond like the initial phases we've guided it through right now. And then before I pass it on to Ishvan and Marta, I just wanted to talk about some of our goals for Fineract CN that we've been using the strategic grant to advance. So first off, we wanted to build out like a MVP on top of Fineract CN that could demonstrate end-to-end a product and a solution on top of the new framework, as we've had the framework out there for a good portion of time right now, but we need to demonstrate that a stable solution that can be built on top of it using, you know, end-to-end, the account management, the accounting, and client management. And so we chose to focus on a mobile wallet use case, as this is a use case that's not supported in a scalable manner on the current generation of Mifos. So if you were to want to build out like a mobile wallet with a high volume of transactions and concurrent users, the savings account that's on generation 2 wouldn't be the ideal foundation in which to do that. So that's why we chose that as the first use case to try to focus on for generation 3. And so we both need to make sure that the transactional account within generation 3 is robust and scalable. But most importantly, we wanted to provide a secure point of connection between the new architecture as well as any client-facing apps. So we already have both a mobile wallet app as well as a mobile banking app that will work with Fineract CN, but we needed a secure point to connect the 2. And so that's the aim of the API Gateway work we're going to showcase today. And then secondarily, some of the other goals we needed to address in working towards this first release of Fineract CN were to remove the category X dependencies that aren't in compliance with Apache licenses. So Isaac has led efforts to replace the database with PostgreSQL, and then Ebenezer, as part of his GSOC project, has been replacing some of the Hibernate components with Eclipse Link. And then other community members from our DevOps team have been working to address making it easier to build Fineract CN and also less resource hungry, so others can deploy and test it out and begin development on top of it. And then the last major goal, and a volunteer in the community, Prakash, has been helping to lead efforts here, is to publish a roadmap around Fineract CN. So we've been setting up calls with key stakeholders in the community to understand what those new use cases and what those new products are that you'd like to see supported on the architecture. So hopefully, if you haven't been spoken to yet, we'll have a call with you soon. But our goal is to understand, you know, what are these solutions and verticals, especially new ones that we'd like to support on the new architecture, document those, and then have a roadmap for what additional microservices need to be built in the core framework and where are other ways the community can contribute. And then I believe this is the last slide I have before I'll pass it on to the DPC team. So just in terms of why we wanted to, you know, why we needed to implement and configure an API gateway with Fineract and Fineract CN. So first off, it goes to that point of enabling that secure point of connection with first-party applications. So in this case, if a microfinance institution or a bank wanted to offer their own mobile banking app, right now, you know, that's done through a self-service API, which is just a wrapper on top of our back office APIs. So we wanted to provide that layer of abstraction between the back office API and the client-facing application. So the API gateway helps to do this, and we still have additional work beyond the API gateway to make this connection even more secure, but it's a good step in that direction. And then secondarily and more strategically, around the world, you know, open banking standards and APIs are starting to emerge. These have originated from the UK and Europe, but other countries, like especially in the markets we're focusing on, like Nigeria, Mexico, and others, are also starting to adopt open banking API standards, which really empower the customers to provide the consent to allow third parties to access data in the core banking system. And with this access to data, any new type of application or service can be built by fintechs or third parties that have been authorized. So it really will enable greater service and innovation for the consumer beyond just the bank or financial institution that they're directly hold the account with. And so before we get to the demo and showcase, like a couple quick notes on decisions we made, and Ishwan will speak to these in more detail, but we chose to adopt the open banking API standard that the UK has advanced. We've chosen the WS02 API Gateway to configure with, and then we've provided support not just for Fineract CN, but also for Fineract. And in terms of what's next, we need to take the work that's been done on the API Gateway and open banking API and integrate it with our actual channel applications. So that's our next focus for our GSOC interns. We're wrapping up the work to optimize the transactional account within Fineract CN for a scalable mobile wallet. And then Ebenezer and Isaac are finalizing the work on removing those category X dependencies. And then the members of the community DevOps teams are continuing to provide more out-of-the-box tools, better documentation to deploy the new architecture. And then lastly, we're continuing to have these conversations and select use cases for this roadmap around generation 3. So I'm going to pause for a moment, and then Ishwan or Marta, which one of you should I make presenter?
Make Marta the presenter.
Yeah, I share my screen. But before we continue, I just see one raised hand. So if there is any question, we can answer that.
Okay, great. We're able to see your screen, Marta.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so let me talk a couple of sentences. I'm István Molnár, the founding partner of DPC Consulting in Budapest, Hungary. And in this project, I have worked together with Marta Jankovic and Tamás Sipos, and we're also contributing Adam Német to develop our demo applications in this project. And so as Eddie explained already, that what is this API gateway and what we try to achieve, I try to summarize this in a bit more detail on this diagram to give you the overall scope. And then Tamás and Marta will give you the details of these different elements and components. So as you could see on this diagram, that on the right side, there is the Mojaloop hub to connecting multiple financial institutions. And in our demonstration or in our laboratory environment, we created 4 of these institutions and connected them via the Mojaloop hub using this payment hub component, what we have also created as part of these projects. So a financial or a payment could go through from one of these core banking platforms via the Mojaloop hub to another instance in another deployment, or simply a different tenant in the same deployment, as Fineract being multi-tenant capable. And in this case, we have implemented the API gateway, the DFSP API gateway, which is capable to provide for third parties the open banking API, meanwhile mapping those standard REST interfaces to the underlying Fineract or Payment Hub APIs. Some of you might be familiar with the PSD2 initiative in Europe. Actually, that's what we have followed, and also similarly to the open banking API. From the set of interfaces, we focused on the balance inquiry, the transaction history, and the payment initiation services. And these services were mapped to the corresponding APIs of Fineract and the Payment Hub. The idea here that the bank publishes a set of public APIs in this API gateway, and third parties in this diagram in the fintech arena box could connect to one or potentially multiple of these payment institutions and aggregate the services. One of the aggregation possibilities that you could get the information of your accounts across multiple financial institutions and provide an aggregated information of your payment history or your balances across these multiple banks. Or another possibility, like for an e-commerce shop, to become a payment initiation provider. So instead of using credit cards or similar facilities, you could utilize these open APIs to initiate a payment from your account management institution to the account of the e-commerce shop, let's say, in this case. And to demonstrate this API gateway and these APIs, we have built one of these fintechs, let's say, for demonstration purposes, who is capable to do both inquire on the accounts and also initiate transactions. So at the end of the story, there's the customer, and the customer in this case has multiple accounts at multiple payment institutions. Let's say in this case at Lion Bank and at Elephant Bank, being at two different financial institutions. And this customer, by authorizing this third party to access the bank APIs on his or her behalf, could invoke that services and get information or initiate payments. To do all of this, we follow the Open Banking API, which describes that how the OAuth protocol should work, the tokens, the consent management, and that's something that Tamás and Marta will describe in the further part of this discussion. One more important piece. So the original idea that these APIs are available for third parties who are independent from the financial institution and could integrate with multiple of these financial institutions. But there's also a need, as Ed explained, that the same set of APIs with a little bit of different authentication and authorization flow could be used for trusted applications, provided the bank itself. So the APIs, what we expose, let's say like balance inquiry, could be utilized by those independent fintechs, but could be utilized like the bank channel, and you can build on top of these ones. Today, you build like internet bank capability, you rely on Fineract and internal APIs, but tomorrow, like with this mobile wallet application, you could simply utilize the same set of APIs, what we are providing on the API gateway. I believe that's the portion what I wanted to share. And I believe Tamás to explain what is inside the API gateway. So how do you see it from the bank perspective? And how do you see it from the fintech perspective? And then what additional components are living inside this API gateway and connectivity implementations. And then we intend to do a demonstration of this facility.
Yeah. My name is Marta Jankovic. I was one of the developers of this framework, and I would like to go into more details regarding the API gateway component that you see here. This API gateway itself has several components, and the first component is a so-called development portal where the third-party providers can subscribe for a published API. So the bank decides to publish some of its functions, we implemented an accepted standard called Open Banking UK standard. There are other standards, but this was the more extended standard and with the most proper documentation that we found. So we decided to implement this standard, but we open to add others. So the first step, which is part of the onboarding process, is that before the user is able to connect to the third-party application, the third-party application should subscribe to a bank or more different banks' APIs. And then I would like to pass the word to Tamás, who will explain you this component, this development portal, how to publish the API and how to subscribe to that API.
Hello, my name is Tamás Sipos. This site is the API publisher site where the bank can publish their APIs. You can see account transaction API and payment initiation API. These defined the open banking standard, and I can show some details. We downloaded the Swagger file from the open banking site and imported this publishing site, and that's way we cannot enter manually these attributes and lot of documentation. And the bank can set a lot of things, the access control. In current showcase, we configure simple as possible the WS02 and the two demo application. And but in the production environment, must be set roles to who can access these APIs and so on. And here the URL pattern, these pattern show the TPP and FTP which URL pattern can access these API functions. Currently, we not implemented the all, just few accounts, account access consents, balances, transactions, party, who needed to show how to work in this process. And I go to the second tab, implement. It can be set a lot of things. The endpoint type, we can use HTTP REST endpoint. We currently not use load balancer or failover settings. This is the one of the important things, the endpoint URL. This URL will provide the real things. This program will communicate the API gateway between the API gateway and the Fineract. Okay, I go to the Manage tab, and we can set a lot of subscription tiers about the APIs. We currently just use unlimited, but it can be configured in the WS02. We don't use currently throughput settings and any other throttling things, but the most important things in that tab, the scopes. The open banking APIs defined scopes to the API groups, or yes. these accounts related functions and define the OAuth scope accounts. We must set that scope, and we must set up, after the import these functions, these scope, just one scope, the accounts, and we can set which type application rights can access these functions. We can set nobody can access it, application user, or application and application user. Some functions use just only the application, and you can see that the query account access consents, typically the consents initiate use the application only. And after the consent is queried and the user authorized this consent request, the other functions can call just if the application and the user authorized for that access. And yes. Okay, after the bank is published these APIs, the third-party provider must be sign up these APIs. This is the sign-up screen. In the WS02 can define or develop some workflows how to accept this sign-up. We currently not focusing that, and I log in the already signed up TPP, and after the TPP login this site can see which APIs available for that, and the TPP must define one or more application which can want to access these APIs. Here we can see already subscribed account transaction APIs and the paymentation APIs. And because the open banking APIs use based on the OAuth authentication authorization, it must be use some related things. The consumer key or consumer secret is the client ID and the client secret in the OAuth term. And this is the callback URL that the OAuth use that to call back this site or URL after the user authorized the consent screen. And yes.
Okay, so currently we have two applications subscribed. One is a third-party application, and the other is a so-called first-party application. The Fintech is the third-party application, meaning that if we go back to this picture, then the third-party application is an independent application. It's not part of the bank, and it is able to connect not only one, but to several banks. The other subscriber is a bank application, which we called on this picture Channel Net Bank. And it's part of the bank installment because it's only connected to one bank. So it's the application belonging to that bank, but it also should subscribe the applications. But there are some differences. We will show you how the third-party and the first-party applications work. But before we go to that UI, maybe just very quickly check another component from the API Gateway, which is the identity management or access management component. And this is the component which authenticates and authorizes the users. So once the application subscribes, then also the user who starts to use this application should be authenticated and authorized. And just very quickly, I will show you the UI interface of this access management component. Here we can manage the logged in users, credentials, see the constants that they gave to the different applications. We can add new user or delete them, and so on. The next component that we don't have any UI for is this transition or adapter component, which is responsible to translate the incoming open banking specified requests to a language that the bank, the first party or the financial service understands. And the last component, but not least, is the financial service provider, the Fineract itself, and for transactions, the payment hub that Ed and István was talking about already, so I don't want to tell more about this, but maybe we can now see how a third-party application works. So now I'm going to log into the prepared test demo application. I log in as a third-party user. And now this is the first time that I'm here. I do not have any bank added to my account. So what I start with, that I add the bank. And from this side, we see that this third party has a contract with two banks. So it's subscribed to the API of two banks, the Lion Bank and the Elephant Bank. So I'm going to add the Lion Bank, and doing so, I need to give consent to the third party to read my account details, to read my balances, to read the user information, my name or address or email address, to read the transactions of these accounts. And here are the accounts listed that I have at this bank. So now I'm going to allow both of my accounts from this bank. I click continue. And now I was redirected to the account screen where these two accounts coming from the Lion Bank already appeared. Now go back and add the other bank, the Elephant Bank also. Here I need to log in first. The Lion Bank, I did not have to log in because I was here before and I checked the remember me on this computer always. So that's the reason why I didn't have to log in. But for the Elephant Bank, I didn't do so. So now I have to log in and give the same constant that I gave before to the Lion Bank, now to the Elephant Bank. At the Elephant Bank, I have one account, I give the consent, and now I'm going back to my accounts list, and as you see now I have 2 accounts from the Lion Bank and 1 account from the Elephant Bank. If I click one of the accounts, then I see the details of this account, the balance, the type of the account, the name of the account, and the transactions that I made on this account before. And now going to the next level, I will go and initiate a payment from this account. And I say that I would like to transfer that amount of Tanzanian shilling, because this account currency was Tanzanian shilling. And I say that this is a test transfer. And as interoperability transaction, here I can add several secondary identifiers like the IBAN or a phone number which is connected to another bank account, to another bank account which is maybe on another bank. So here I will add a phone number which belongs to the account from the Elephant Bank, which is, as I remember correctly, is this. So now I'm going to transfer this amount of money from one of my Lion Bank account to my Elephant Bank account. I click Create Payment Request. Here I see the details, so I will transfer this amount of money, and it already calculated the fee that the debtor bank will add additionally to this amount. So altogether I will have to pay 112 shillings. And for now, we're just doing first factor authentication, but in the future, or if we have a next level of this project, then we will do 2-factor authentications. This checkbox here initiates that here we would need a strong customer authentication, meaning that the second factor should be requested here, like a fingerprint or Google second factor or any other type of second factors. For now, I just check this checkbox that, okay, I did the second factor, and I am going to continue. So what happened? This third-party provider in my name finished or initiated a transaction. I got back to this page saying that the payment was initiated. Again, these are the details. I say okay. And now if I go to my accounts, I should see the result of this transaction. This was the payer account. So here I have to see the debit of 111 plus the 1 shilling fee. And if I go to the account from the Elephant Bank, then I should see the credit of 111 Tanzanian shillings. Here it is. I also can log into the bank itself through the administration page. So this is the administration application of the Fineract. This is the Lion Bank. I'm going to check the account status here also. This was the payer account, and I ordered transactions, and here you see that I also see that this transaction in this administration page, withdrawal fee and withdrawal amount. I could also check the other bank, the Elephant Bank, but maybe it's not necessary. There I would see the 111,000 yen shilling credit. So this was the third-party application. And as I told you, we also...
Sorry, just one comment, just to make sure that it's clear for every participant that now this payment went through the Mojaloop hub. So if you click just for a second to that diagram.
Okay, I can show you here what was the workflow. So the user was logged in first to this third-party application and then initiated the list of accounts, an account information API request. But the API gateway realized that this user does not have a valid consent given yet. So it redirected to the access management component where I had to log into the bank. And also after login, I had to add the consent for reading my account details, transaction, etc. And I was redirected back to the third-party application, so I was able to see the list of my accounts. Now the next thing that I was doing, I initiated a payment, so the request came in. And the API gateway realized that, I have a read consent, but I did not give any consent for this special payment because an account information consent is valid for some time. It's again depending on the bank, how long it gives the read consent, maybe for a day or for forever or what something, but a payment consent is always valid for one payment. So for this payment, I need to give a separate new consent. I gave it at this access management page, and it was not visible, but I was redirected here and back to the third-party application, and then the third-party application was able to really initiate the payment. It came through the API gateway. It checked both the third-party provider credentials, if it has a valid access token, so meaning it's subscribed and it's not expired yet and everything is valid, and also the user has the credentials and the consent that's needed. Then it came to this adapter layer, which transformed the request to an FSP request. And in case of account information request, it directly goes to Fineract. So it calls Fineract, give me the list of accounts for this user, or give me the transactions for this account, and so on. But for payment, it goes to Payment Hub. And Payment Hub then forwards the request to, or drives or manages the workflow of a payment. So it first calls the Fineract of the payer side, calculates the code, then through Mojaloop, it goes to the other instance where the other bank is and calls the payment hub of that other bank. And that payment hub requests the quotes on the pay side and then do the credit on the pay side. And as a last step, the payment hub calls Fineract to do the debit step. And then it goes back that everything was done and ready. As you see, the payment hub is prepared to change Mojaloop to another clearinghouse solution, and also prepared to change the financial provider. if it will be necessary, and the adapter layer is prepared to change the API interface from open banking to a new specification if we would like to do so. So where you see the red arrows, that's the main workflow, how the requests came in. So that was the third-party application that I showed you, and now I am going to show you a first-party application which is inside the bank infrastructure, so it belongs to this bank. Therefore, the workflow a bit differs, because when I log into this application, I already log into the bank itself. And this application, of course, is not able to connect to other banks, only this bank, which will be the Lion Bank. So is there any question? I'm just checking if there is any message or raised hand. Nothing more than this before. So I'm going to open the first party application, Lion FinTech application. And as you see before, I am able to see the list of my accounts. First, I need to approve the consents. This page is just temporarily because it's not 100% finished yet. This could be done automatically in this case, in the first party case. So the user shouldn't see it. It's not really necessary. Let me just log out. Okay, so I was here. I should see the list of my accounts. Okay, here's some icons missing anyway. So I am in the Lion Bank, and maybe you remember that at Lion Bank, this user, who is John Smith, has 2 accounts. And again, I am able to see the details of an account, or go back and see the details of another account. This was the account that I initiated the payment before. So if I list here the transactions, we should see the previous transaction that we did from the third party. This 111 something. Now let's go and initiate another payment from this account. Again. 11, whatever. And maybe it makes sense to send the money to the same account, just to, to the account from the Elephant Bank, because if we do so, we will be able to check the result in the third-party application. So this is again, it could be any other bank account which is registered in Mojaloop, because this secondary identifier needed to be registered in the global directory, which for us now is the Mojaloop application. Okay, so create payment request. The summary screen a bit differs because now we are in another application, but the basic is the same. We see the amount that we will transfer, some account information, name of payer or payee account, the note or description of the payment, the current status, and it also calculates the charges. So that means that the Fineract bank was already called with the details of these transactions. The balance was checked. So if I wouldn't have enough balance to do this transfer, then I wouldn't. So on this screen, I would I would get an error message that, okay, this transfer is not possible because you don't have enough balance on this account. So it's already checked, the fee is already calculated, and knowing all this information, I'm now able to click approve. I see the result of the transaction. I click OK, and I'm going back to the account list. Maybe here I can check the payers side, but for the pay side, we have to go back to the third-party application. Here you see that this transfer already happened, so it's done and finished. Now go back to the Elephant account, which we can check from the third-party application. And there we should see the credit of this 11 million shillings. So what happened in this case was we initiated, so when the user logged in, then he was already logged into this API channel, and the workflow is the same, requesting an API solution or service. It goes through the API gateway just to check the credentials, because the credentials should be checked. The user credentials should be checked, and if it's not valid, then the user would be redirected to log in again, for example. Now, if it's valid, then we go on the same way as if it would be a third party, and we come to the transfer layer and to the FSP layer and through Mojaloop and so on. Okay, I think that was that we wanted to show you.
Marty, just one more thing. If we go back to the slide, there's the overview diagram. Yes. Probably after all of this demonstration, it's worth to spend like half a minute to summarize that actually what you have seen is this. So all of the components, what you have seen in the demonstration was utilized. So again, starting from right to left, there was the Mojaloop hub. All of those transactions, then from Lion Bank to Elephant Bank, then through from the Fineract instance to the payment hub, or to be precise, it started from the customer application, which is a web-based application, which sent this request to the fintech backend application, which invoked the API gateway on that particular bank that you initiated, for example, this payment transaction. That particular API gateway with the underlying mapping logic invoke the payment hub to communicate that, hey, we intend to transfer some money. Then the payment hub interacted with the core banking platform, Fineract, saying that here's this account, I want to block this and this amount and the corresponding fee. Then it initiated the whole transaction flow via the Mojaloop hub, which the lookup of the mobile number identified that which payment, which other DFSP this transaction is targeting, sent the corresponding transaction to that particular payment hub. That payment hub invoked Fineract APIs for the target account, booked the amount, what it was received, and responded back via the Mojaloop hub that this transaction was successful. It is all according to the Mojaloop defined protocol in this interledger protocol, what is the way that payments goes through Mojaloop. And then this information come back to the originating payment hub. It has finished the transaction with Fineract and notified the API gateway that this was done, or this payment was completed, let's say. And then it obviously went to the customer that what happened. And once this is done, you could inquire your account balance or transaction history, and from via the API gateway, which invokes Fineract directly, it could get all the information on your balance or your account, sorry, and that was also presented in this client application. So that's what we have demonstrated on this real laboratory environment, with all of these components installed and real transactions going through the system. Ed, is there anything that you wish to add to this demonstration, to this summary?
Ishwan, do we think we can try to demonstrate the QR code transaction via the payment hub?
We don't have prepared on this third-party application yet. It's yeah, okay. We had that use case in another environment, but that environment I didn't check if it's up and running or what's the state of that. But I can try.
So probably it's better if we go in. Yeah. While you are trying, Marty, then we can go to those slides in this presentation. I believe it's part of this deck. And then I could explain that what's the idea there. It was somewhere in the appendix, I believe. Yes, keep going. Ready? Yes. That was those slides. So besides this flow, what you have seen via the API gateway, before that we did another application. Then the payment hub was created in the first iteration without API gateways. So this software was integrated directly with the payment hub. And as you logged in to the merchant bank. So this is a merchant transaction, and the merchant prepares a dynamic QR code in its application. So as you see on this screenshot, that the merchant logs in, prepare this order, so specify the amounts of description, and then create a payment request in the form of a dynamic QR code. So this QR code could be presented to the customer, and now the customer could log in to his or her own application. We can go, I believe, to the next slides.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, and so the customers log in to its own banking application. Click on the read QR code button, and from this dynamic QR code, all the details for the transaction is retrieved, which account to transfer, what amount to transfer, what's the message, and then the customer could approve this transaction and the payment initiated. Again, this goes through the payment hub, then from the payment hub of the originating bank. So from the customer bank, it goes to Mojaloop hub, and that is passes on to the target DFSP's payment hub, which communicates with the account management system of the target DFSP. And once this transaction went through, the merchant supposed to sit in front of his phone that's showing the QR code. And in the slideshow, we will see, so the merchant will see that his application refreshes, and instead of showing the QR code, it will show that the payment successfully received to his bank account, so he could hand over the goods to the customer. So that was another application that was developed utilizing the same components without the API gateway at that point. but rather Fineract, the payment hub, and this Mojaloop hub solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's what we wanted to share today.
Yeah, and then real quickly, I think I could show, I tested it out, Ishvan. I think we could show it live too, so.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, let me share my screen. So.
I just,
oh, you've got it there?
yeah, I just shared, so I logged in as a merchant. I went back to the previous environment. This was the application which directly connected to the payment hub. So if we go back to this, whatever, so without API Gateway, there was an application which directly called payment hub. And here the merchant logged in, I initiated a payment request, and the merchant generated this QR code. And now I could, I don't have my phone at me, but I log in to as a customer to this application as okay, maybe I won't share that screen for now, but now I'm reading the QR code, and what you should see, I approved the application, and this screen also needs to be changed and go back.
Click on this continue fetching payment informations button.
Yeah.
Below.
Okay, I don't know what's happened, but so this environment we didn't use in the last, I don't know, 3-4 months. So I have to check what's the current situation with it. But what we should see is that this screen is changed to successful payments screen if the transaction went through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I can share my camera.
Okay.
I think I should be able to scan your QR code that's on your, or you can share your screen again, Marta, and then I'll scan your
Okay.
QR code and it should work.
I'm ready, but something went wrong, but we can retry again, but maybe, you know, sometimes the servers stop themselves, and but we can try again. So let's start.
Okay, well, I'll try it. I'm sharing my screen now. So I went back into this NetBank app, which we've also, you know, we built the same functionality in our mobile wallet application. But let's say, you know, I'm preparing the order for 500 and it's for banana tree. And then I'll create the payment request, and then I have that code, and then my camera should be,
Okay.
I thought my camera was being shared. Just one moment.
Okay.
I think my video is not getting detected. Just one moment. Okay, I think what's blocking me now is that I can't share my video. So yeah, we'll demonstrate that later on. But we just wanted to show live that the QR code would work, but the walkthrough of the screenshots worked well. But I have to restart Zoom if I want to actually share my webcam. So.
Yeah, it's not straightforward to share multiple devices in this scenario to be easy to demonstrate over Zoom. Yeah, but the screenshot, I believe, was quite good to explain the concept and how this part works.
Yeah, this workflow would also work from this new API Gateway environment. We just didn't add this workflow to the test third-party GUI implementation yet. So that's missing.
And then we do have some questions now, Marta and Ishvan. So one from Antana was how the payment hub works. So could you bring one of the payment hub diagrams on the screen?
Okay, so I will share my screen.
And then we'll open the floor to any questions now. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat, or we can, also unmute you and you can verbalize your question as well. But if you have any questions, please share them in the chat. But we're, as far as next steps, like we want to enable others to connect other payment systems via the payment hub. So we'll be sharing, the documentation related to that. And then likewise, as I mentioned earlier, our mobile development interns, they're going to be working on connecting our channel apps via the new API gateway. And we'll also have documentation around that. So that's currently under development, but soon we'll share links to all the source code repositories, as well as the documentation, and then the demo environment where you can test this out. But we'll open the floor to any questions. And then Marta, I'll let you go through that payment hub a bit for Antana. So.
Yeah, maybe it's good to start from this image. We have a more detailed workflow description, but maybe from a wider view, what Payment Hub is doing, it connects several components together. One side is the channel connectors, meaning the mobile application, the bank application, or a third-party application through the API gateway, so some client connection. The requests come from this side. And then Payment Hub connects also to the financial provider layer, Fineract. We also implemented Fineract 1.2 and Fineract CN. Actually, the API gateway is also able to connect on both of these Fineract versions. For now, we have two Fineracts 1.2 installed, but I will try to install one Fineract CN instead of the Fineract 1.2, just to show you that it also works with Fineract CN. Anyway, so this is the other direction that Payment Hub connects with. And the third side of Payment Hub is the Mojaloop or other connector applications which are able to connect this bank, because Payment Hub always belongs to one bank, maybe several tenants. So maybe Payment Hub is multi-tenant, able to support multi-tenants, but one installation. And through Mojaloop, it is able to connect to another installation, to another Payment Hub, which connects to other bank tenants. There could be components inside Payment Hub or connected to Payment Hub, like fraud detection or high availability, logging components, and so on. So the main purpose of Payment Hub is that it orchestrates the payment process. So it accepts requests from the channel side. Then it knows that what should be the next step. Check the payee and the payer accounts, the secondary identifiers, resolve the secondary identifiers through Mojaloop and through Fineract. And once the payer and the payee sides are both resolved, then it starts the workflow. Maybe for the more detailed workflow, I'm going to show you another picture. I also prepared that, but I don't know which tab is that. So let's, this one. So on this picture, what you see is this is the channel side. So the requests come from here, and the orange backgrounds are the payment hubs. One payment hub, one installation for a bank, and another payment hub. And in between this white background is the Mojaloop, the transfer connector layer. And on both sides, there are the financial suppliers in blue background, Fineract 1.2 or Fineract CN for now. And the workflow is that follows, that the request comes, then it checks for duplicates, it checks if the request is for an already ongoing transfer or not. It goes to Mojaloop and requests the payer and payee informations from the global directory. So resolve the secondary identifiers. If it's done, then as next step, it goes and calculates the quotes, the fees and costs, and maybe that there are some additional payments from the bank. No, anyway, so it goes to calculate the quotes on the payer side or each side, and through Mojaloop, it is able to go to the other side, to the payee side, and calculate the quotes there and summarize the quotes as next step. And if it's necessary and the bank has the workflow of that, it can notify the payer and show a notification page to them that, hey, instead of 100, you should pay 102 because of the $2 fees that the bank additionally added on top of your payment. Next step is to prepare the payment, prepare the transfer. So on the payer side, we book or just put some amount on hold, making sure that this amount will be here when we really wanna debit it. Next step, that it goes to the payee side, and the real transaction, the credit part of the transaction happens. So the amount is added to the payee side account. The specification says that until this point, the transaction can be revoked or reverted, but once the payee side transaction was finished, it cannot anymore. Even if the last step, which is the payer side debit, fails for any reason, we cannot go back and revert the credit on the payee side. So anyway, if it's successful, then it goes to the payer side and do the debit. And as last step, it prepares an error response and sends back an error response if there was any failure, or it creates a notification that it was successful. And if there is a server on the client side which it can call back, then it can call back that specified URL with the result. So that's the detailed workflow of the payment hub. So it orchestrates the payment workflow. It knows what step is coming after. So what's the next step? It knows that which validation and filters and maybe timeouts and expiration dates should be checked in between. And it goes to the next step if everything was okay. Does it answer your question? Oli and Warren, okay. Yeah, thank you. Any other question?
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we're to the end of the 90 minutes we had allocated. So as I noted earlier, we'll share links to the documentation and the repositories and the demo environment and the process to, begin incorporating the API Gateway as well as the payment hub into the other applications that are being developed by the community. But I want to thank Istvan, Marta, and Tomasz and Adam for their presentations today and leading the work around these efforts. And we're looking forward to hosting some upcoming webinars in the coming weeks to showcase some of the work that our GSOC interns have been doing. And then if there are any partners that have solutions or work that they'd like to showcase, please let us know as well. So thank you again to everyone, and we'll send around the link to the recording shortly after today's meeting too. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you.